So I want to talk to you about certain things.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about whose phrasing got you first.
I kind of had all these different discoveries along the way of things from guitar players that hit me. And
You want to start with vibrato?
vibrato, the way I learned how to do vibrato, and this is really funny, but this is wearing an Iron Maiden shirt, and I was talking about learning things from records. I would learn Iron Maiden solos, and it wouldn't sound like it. You know, how come it doesn't sound like Adrian Smith? So one day I'm learning this solo, and it's slowed down, and I hear the note stop, and I hear. I'm like, that's how he's doing it. He's actually bending up to the note and back down and up and back down and up. It's just really fast. So it was Adrian Smith. I learned how to do vibrato by listening to Iron Maiden solos.
Other guitar players, vibrato. Vibrato is really, that's your hands and.
It's huge. Yngwie.
Steve Morse.
Steve Morse. Steve Morse is actually, to me, you know, I had a progression as far as my level as a player. And as I got better, I would kind of jam with friends in the neighborhood. We have some recordings of old jams that I did, which one day maybe we'll release. Actually, my wife really wants to release them. They're kind of fun. One day, it's always like an older brother or a friend of an older brother. He's like, you got to check out the Dregs. I'm like, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And I was kind of getting better at guitar. He's like, no, you need to go to the next level. Check out the Dregs. And he showed me the song "The Bash," you know, which is this chicken picking crazy thing. I never thought guitar could be played like that, like Steve. And then I became hooked. And I think I forget the order, but at some point, Steve's first solo album, The Introduction, came out. And I'd learned every song from that album, and I would sit there with a metronome trying to play his lines and arpeggios and things.
Did you play General Lee?
I didn't play General Lee, no.
I busted you on that.
Yeah, no. I did not play that. But it wasn't only Steve's playing and his versatility as a guitar player, you know, because he'd play classical guitar, he'd play, you know, there was country infused, there was rock and everything, but the compositions is what got me. They're all instrumental, and I could just listen to that stuff over and over and over. It was so musical and so well composed. It wasn't just, you know, passing the time, and that really hooked me on being able to be not only an accomplished guitar player, but a composer as well. Amazing.
You went to Berkeley.
Yes, I grew up on the East Coast in New York, went up to Boston, to Berkeley. With John Myung, our bass player. We grew up together, went up there. We met our first drummer, Mike, and formed the band there. And it was over 30 years ago. We were just young, you know, we were 17, 18 years old. And I went there because I heard that Steve Vai went there. You know, I followed my heroes, you know, Dimiola and all these guys. I wanted to do what they did and follow their path, and they went to Berkeley. So I'm like, I'm going to Berkeley.
At what point did you feel like you had your own voice on the guitar, and how important was it for you to listen to Steve's to Steve's deal to Vai's whammy, or
Sure.
take it from there?
Well, I have a funny story about that. So talking about phrasing and technique and being influenced by all these guys. So Joe Satriani was another really big one for me, because he's somebody who knows how to write a song, knows how to make the guitar speak as a lead, you know, almost like a vocal instrument, and can shred his ass off. So he has everything. And so his phrasing, the way that he approached notes, vibrato, bending, you know, I mean, every note he plays is perfectly bent in tune. He has all these cool techniques and just such a great sense of songwriting. So we have Joe and that influence on me. Then Steve Morse, as I just mentioned, and Steve Vai, you know, going to Berkeley, I was just completely enamored with his whole thing, like him being hired by Frank Zappa to do all these transcriptions, then going to Berkeley, and he had this flexible series of lessons. I used to mail order, and they'd come like, you know, paper, and I would like learn Steve Vai's lesson. I don't know if you guys remember that. And then, you know, he was in Alcatraz and then played with David Lee Roth. And, you know, forget it. He's Steve Vai. He was like one of the most innovative guitar players on the planet. So fast forward, I get asked to do G3 by Joe. And I'm up on stage. And it's Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Steve Morse, and me. And we're trading solos. And the whole time, all I'm thinking is, holy shit. I'm like, A, they're gonna recognize every lick I ripped off from them. and I'm very quickly going in my head, can't play that one, can't play that one, can't play. And it's happening. Wait, Yngwie's not here. Wait, I think I could do that. And it was the most bizarre. It was like, you ever have those dreams where you just transported in a situation and you're completely unprepared? Like, what do you mean we're playing that song? I don't know.
I guess a baby rattlesnake bites and lets loose all its venom. Okay? And a young hotshot guitar player is kind of like a baby rattlesnake. G3 only works to me because of the character and integrity of the musician. And I want you to explain trading solos in an collaborative environment.
Sure.
I think this is a really good lesson to everybody.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a great lesson for me because, you know, those guys that I'm talking about. So all of the above. So Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Lukather, Steve Morris, Paul Gilbert. You know, these guys are accomplished on this great level as guitar players, and you know, you might assume, you know, what goes along with that is like these massive egos and this and trying to like play better than the other guy and being all, you know, I don't know what the word is, but disrespectful or too competitive. But it's exactly the opposite. You know, the spirit on stage, on tour, backstage and everything is so, everybody's so welcoming. Everybody is so
selfless.
Selfless, yeah, like willing to share, you know, anything. If you're having some issue, you know, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. One of the G3 tours was with Eric Johnson, and Eric is, you know, unbelievable. Another one of these monster players. We showed up for the first show. I think it might have been in South America. It was Joe, me, and Eric, and my rig showed up, and the boogie, like, I guess they had inspected it somewhere in customs, and they broke all the tubes. So I didn't even meet Eric Johnson yet. I didn't even say hello. He comes over, hey man, what's going on with the amp? Let me see that. I think I can fix that. Hey, you know, whoever's texted, bring my screwdriver over or whatever. Next thing I know, he's behind my rig. I didn't even say, hi, Eric, my name is John. You know, a while back, my wife and I met Steve Morse somewhere. We were going to do something together, and I pull up, and the car had a little scratch on it. Before I could shake Steve's hand, hey man, I think I could buff that out. What's going, you know? And it's like everybody, you know, Joe, Vi, Paul, all have like this really gracious spirit, and it's contagious, you know. And everybody loves to share and loves to tell stories about how they did this, that, and the other thing. We did a tour with Zappa Plays Zappa, you know, and Dweezil is on that tour, and we're talking about like, you know, guitar players love to share the most nerdy details about picks and, you know, all these little things.
But there's a point when they're not, and there's a point in their maturity.
Yeah.
When they do, and the one thing I just say is that that's something I learned and I felt was so beautiful about playing with great musicians, is that they were so secure in what they've done and they've accomplished.
Yeah.
The result you heard was better. I want to talk about Luke a little bit.
Sure.
Because how many of you are familiar with Steve Lukather? Okay. Luke got PR badged as sterile and processed because he played on 800 hit records. Okay? And
God
sometimes
forbid.
people don't consider Luke amongst the highest echelon of guitar players,
I don't know
except for other guitar players. How would you, what strikes you about Luke? What would you say about his playing and how his personality matches his playing?
Oh, he's totally. Luke has this personality that's so huge where he lets it all out. He is unabashed and unafraid, right? And has so much character. And when he plays guitar, I say this sometimes. People ask me about what is it like to play with this person. Somebody asked me what it's like to play with Mike Mangini, like somebody like that. And there are certain musicians when you're on stage playing, and you're standing next to them, and they start to do their thing, where there's this crazy amount of energy and confidence.
Thank you.
Mike is like that.
Oh, you weren't.
Sterling is like that. Luke is like that. Like when it's intimidating in a good way. He picks up a guitar, if you're doing like a little sound check, and he plays like one note, right, with so much confidence. It's scary. It's like, holy shit.
But he's very fluid and very melodic.
So melodic, so fluent, and has such a great mixture of being able to put elements of jazz and different styles into his playing. So his lines are always really interesting. And of course, played on some of the most, popular songs in the world, some of the greatest songs. I was watching the other day, there was a live Toto event from Europe. My wife and I were watching it. We had it on, and Steve was just playing his ass off, singing great, great like progressive songs. I didn't even know some of them. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And he's just such a talented musician, composer, guitar player.
When did you kind of realize, hey, I got a voice on the guitar?
I don't think that I personally realized myself that I had my own voice on the guitar. I think that it was when somebody actually told me that there's something there. And I remember when we released Images and Words, it was like 1992, and we were friends with the band Fates Warning from Connecticut, and Frank, the guitar player, called me, and he's like, man, I just listened to it, and he's like, that solo you did on Under a Glass Moon, he was like freaking out in a way, like that it was something that there was something there that he was like identified with. And that was the first time where I kind of got a little bit of a feeling like maybe I'm finding my own way, and it's not so much a mixture of all these different guitar players. And I think that was the first time I got that kind of feedback where somebody let me know that something reached them in a way that was maybe different than before.
How much do you practice?
My practicing goes like this. When I was younger, I used to play 6 hours a day minimum. That's what I had to do to be able to live with myself, for the rest of the day. As I became professional and started touring and recording and stuff like that, I would find that I would play probably even more than that because of, preparing for a tour, having to practice before the show, then the show itself. But at the same time, as my career went on, I would find that I actually needed breaks from it. And I always thought that was weird because I kind of really looked up to like the whole thing where you just have to practice all the time, practice all the time, practice all the time. And I didn't get it until I was a little older that like walking away for a bit, taking a breather, coming back, there's nothing wrong with that. And I find that when I do that, when I come back and pick it up, I kind of have a new spirit about it and new inspiration. And anything that you want to be good at, if it's sports, if it's music, if it's anything, writing, the consistency is what matters. It really is. You can't cram. You can't like not practice and then all of a sudden, oh crap, I got a show coming up and like cram it in. It doesn't work that way. You need to do, and I learned this a long time ago too. Even if you can't get a massive amount of time, don't let that make you say I can't do it at all. Even if you just do 20 minutes, And they say that about going to the gym and stuff like that too. Don't make an excuse because you don't have an hour to work out. If you have 20 minutes, do it. And I think that consistency is what's really important.
Is there a place you go or a thing you do for inspiration?
One of them is writing with the members of my band. I find that very inspiring. This current album that comes out in 7 days, I'm very nervous.
What's it called?
And we have Dream Theater has a new album called The Astonishing. It will be out in 7 days. It's a double CD concept album. It's crazy, but our me and our keyboard player Jordan wrote the whole thing, and we wrote together just in small rooms and in the studio, and I find that very inspiring. You know, writing with somebody who's so musical and has so much talent and ability, that inspires me, and we kind of work off each other. So that's a big form of inspiration. Sometimes it's when I'm away from the guitar. You know, I'll wake up from a dream or something, and something will hit me. That happens a lot. I've said this many times before, but massive lack of sleep is good. Like when I have jet lag, like if I fly to Japan, you know what I mean, James? Like, and you're kind of loopy. All of a sudden you start
Are
writing.
you calling James loopy? Your recording process is recording sections that are very, very precise. You don't play a track all the way through usually, right? When you guys record a track?
No. not
Okay,
usually.
so doing it in sections and then putting the sections together
Yeah.
and then having to do it live in front of somebody, how much, that's really hard, isn't it?
Well, there's a funny thing that happens. Like, let me give you an example of what he's talking about. Okay, so use the most current thing, our current album. We wrote it. It's really long. It's like 2 hours and 13 minutes long. It's like watching a movie. So there's 34 songs on them. They were written, like I said, between Jordan and I. We demoed them out, and then we showed them to the guys. Mike Mangini came in and played drums to these demos. So now, okay, we have a song, because we have the drums, and then we start layering on top of that, recording the bass and guitars and keyboards. It was orchestrated, so we have choir and orchestra and everything. And eventually the album is mixed, and it's coming out, and it's done. So as of right now, today, and the first tour date is February 18th, we have never played those songs together. We've never actually played them yet, right? It's weird. We don't always do it that way. Sometimes we write together in the studio and record it and everything. But in this case, when we show up to rehearsals and say, okay, go, and Mike counts off the song, hopefully it will work
Well,
and sound like a song. But it's a real interesting process. And eventually it does, of course, and we feel really comfortable and we know what works. So
the greatest guitar players in the world, in my opinion, are also the greatest rhythm guitar players in the world.
Right.
What he plays during a show when he's not soloing, it's mind-blowing because he's basically playing with the snare or some part of the drums. And would you just give me an idea of some of the stuff on the lower strings?
Yeah.
And this is going to actually get into the guitar commercial part.
Two things about what he said. One is, as far as people, you know, watching and analyzing, I've played songs live before and played a solo, and then actually had somebody email me and say I didn't play it with the right fingering, and then I actually go back and realize he was right, and say, oh wow, I didn't play. So yeah, there is a hyper level of analyzation that comes with it, but it's all fun.
That causes you problems sometimes. I mean,
Well, you have to kind of like, as you're playing, try not to think about that too much, you know, because then you get really self-conscious, and that doesn't let the music shine through. But in answer to what he was talking about, as far as playing live and him hearing the headphone mix, and I've said this before too, as far as the role of the guitar, if you think about, you know, watching a concert of any band, unless it's just a jam band where the guy's soloing all over the place, you're playing rhythm. What's the percent? What would you guys think? Like 95% of the night you're playing rhythm? You know, if you actually if you took all the solos, I don't know, take a Dream Theater album and clock the solos, they'd probably be, 3 minutes?
yeah.
Right?
But
It's
you
all
know what though,
rhythm
the
playing.
thing, this is what I'm getting to as far as guitar playing, is that you spend all your time practicing your solos. I never see players practice their rhythm.
Right. You know, earlier I mentioned Metallica. Like when I heard Master of Puppets, I was like, yes, I get it now. So the whole thing about rhythm guitar playing in my style and with the band, you know, we're like a band who's influenced by prog as far as like Yes and the Dregs and Pink Floyd and stuff like that, but we're like post Metallica and Maiden and stuff, and that whole thing is about super tight rhythmic things that are locked in with the drums, with the kick and the snare, and you know, we kind of very early on came up with this. It ended up being like a stylistic thing. We didn't think of it at the time, but for example, like in the song Metropolis, like when it goes into the verses, we're doing this, right? That whole kind of tight thing with the drums, and then making the music and chords go around that. That's a technique that we do all the time, and it can get very complex. And if that is out of whack, if that's not tight between the drums and the bass, the whole band falls apart. It sounds awful. So it's a huge part of the night. The rhythm playing, having your hand, especially if you're playing 7-string, in this position, you know, for 2 hours plus, you have to be conditioned to do that. And the right hand work to do all that for that long, and then jump into a solo, it's all conditioning. It's.
I think it's scary.
My analogy is like, you guys have watched like the Olympics, like gymnastics and stuff like that, right? So you know when they go to do a floor routine or something. So imagine if before they had to do that perfect floor routine, they had to run, you know, 5 miles, and then run right into the thing and do that thing perfectly. That's what playing a concert is like, because your total stamina. You know, you're playing all these chords, you're locked in, you're performing, you're with the band, you're with the audience, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, solo, go. You know, and then you all of a sudden you have to be loose and fluid and expressive. And I think that shift of gears, like that, it's all a mental game. It's part conditioning and it's part mental.
When do you lay out?
When do I lay out? When the song dictates it. You know, my guitar playing is all about the song and how it's going to help it be better. So if that means that there's no guitar and another instrument is featured, whether it's vocals or piano or something, then that's my job. So I kind of like almost put on like the producer hat and think of the bigger picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're playing the Majesty.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have a contract, and also, as James will tell you too, I'm available all the time. I mean, if you text me, you'll get an answer back. I sleep very little, but I start at 5 in the morning. This is true story, and I finish at 9:30 at night. I go in from my man cave.
And you're on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. So
right.
You know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, I could text him and he's up, and I'm like, why are you up? Because it's like 5.
I have to tell you something. I actually really love this. I think I'm like Babe Ruth or whatever said he's the luckiest man on earth. I mean, I get to create tools for great and diverse artists.
You know, as far as this relationship that we have about developing instrument, building guitars that are going to be, for me, something that's going to allow me to be the best guitar player and musician I could be, and then maybe translate to somebody else who picks it up and they love it and that inspires them. That relationship requires this kind of this synergistic understanding of music and guitar. And so many times Sterling has sat me down in his house, different rooms, and we just listen to music. We listen to guitar players. He turns me on to all these guys I never heard of, you know, sends me CDs, things like that. We jam, you know, we'll be at a house, we start to play. I walk up on stage at one of these events, we're playing. We're developing a guitar, and we're at the factory, and we pick it up, and we play, and we jam. And that kind of back and forth makes the two of us know that there's an understanding. You know, he's not coming from some corporate place where he doesn't get it. He's coming from an artistic place, and that always shines through. That's always the most important thing. And anytime there's an idea like, I wonder if we can do this, or would it be a good idea if we did that? His answer is always like, first of all, we can do anything. Second of all, don't think about, you know, what somebody will think or whatever. This is about what works for you. What's your perspective? And if you stay true to that, we're going to come up with some really unique and successful and incredible instruments.
The Majesty was the greatest challenge we've ever had, because he called me on a Saturday morning and said, I have an idea for a guitar. And I've told this last year, but still, I go, what is it? He goes, a Stallion. Look at the phone.
Hey, Stallion, yeah.
Yeah, here I got Rocky Balboa. What's a Stallion?
Yeah, Sterling, I want to do a Stallion guitar.
Yeah, I said, yeah, well, so let me guess, it's got to be fast, right?
Yeah.
And then you said, well, sleek and powerful. Okay, I got a lot to work on. I'll get right back to you. You see now, when you look at this shape, it is kind of like a running horse, okay? But really what it was, his playing has developed so much and his body's changed and everything since we started working. He can feel 10,000ths of an inch with the pickup. And he anchors his pinky under the bobbin of the bridge pickup. And if that's not right, he knows it right away. And at first he was really confused when we were working on guitars. I said, well, that's because it's actually 30,000ths different. And we'd get it right. He goes, wow, that's a difference. So this was a sonic requirement, an ergonomic requirement, and a structural requirement that required making a guitar different than anybody's ever made it. The actual Majesty is the shape of the shield and the neck. And then it's inlaid into a basswood carrier, for lack of a better word. Every single thing has been, I don't know, I think we made 26 prototypes and started over, okay, and made another 20-something. This is the most advanced electric guitar in the world. And so what's happened to John is, John's got the ability to cross genre. I look at Joe Walsh is playing the national anthem for the Lakers game, and he's playing a JP. I go see John Fogerty, he's playing it. And so the things John wants in a guitar actually have really worked because they've crossed genres. How many of you have one of his guitars, and how many have guitars and don't play Dream Theater kind of music? They play a different style. See, to me, that's the most valid compliment John can get as a guitar designer.
You know what? I've learned this over the years. I mean, first of all, I'm in such a great position that I don't take lightly how special this is to be able to have a relationship with Ernie Ball Music Man and Sterling and his team, so that I can come up with ideas for an instrument and then actually have it turn into a real instrument. I mean, it's wild, and that never gets old. But what I found over the years are that the things that I require as a player, my wishes, my desires as a player, like, you know, if only this was like this, or if only this was like that, are very actually common. You know, when I talk to other guitar players, they're like, yeah, I always thought that, or yeah, you know, I have the same concerns. So I think that has something to do with it, is that it's not that my way of thinking is so outside the box. It's actually kind of common. It's kind of like universal in a way. And so the features of the guitar are things that are appealing to a lot of different players. I think that has something to do with it. You know, even things like my hand size and everything, you know, it's not like there's abnormal things going on.
No, it's awesome. John, I want to thank you because I know you got a signing. We're going to give you a couple minutes before the signing. I hope you learned something today that might have inspired you, motivated, or answered a question. But thank you very much.
This was great. Thank you, Sterling. Awesome.